what's up everybody? This is Audrey, 2025 Pacific Crest Trail hiker, and I'm here to help you along in your permit process. If you are looking to hike the PCT in 2026 or beyond, I know that with that comes a lot of permit anxiety. But I'm here to tell you that it doesn't need to. The PCT permit process is really not as bad as you probably think that it is. And the PCTA long distance permit is not the end all be all. It's not your only option. So if you're ramping up for the PCTA lottery and you're feeling super anxious and you're thinking, what if I don't get a good date? What if I don't get a permit at all? What will I do? Well, I'm here to help. For much of the PCT, you actually do not need a permit to hike on the trail or even camp overnight. It's only certain sections that you actually need a permit for. So today I want to talk about the local sections that you actually need a permit for and what to do if you're unsuccessful at getting a long distance PCT permit. And by the way, this video is from the perspective of going northbound because the majority of people are going to be going northbound, and those are the permits that are pretty competitive and harder to get. Also, before I get into this, I do feel obligated to say, whether you are hiking the PCT on a long distance permit or on local permits, please, please, please brush up on leave no trace principles and practice them while you're out on the trail, please. These are incredible wilderness areas that you're going through, and the PCT has had some overcrowding and overuse for sure. So these permits are meant to cut down on that. And I don't think that the permit process is perfect in any way, and getting these local permits is a legal way to hike the PCT, but I do think there is a lot of overuse going on, and I think there are a lot of people not treating the wilderness areas the way that they should. So before I share this information, I just really thought it was important to say that. So please and thank you, respect these beautiful, amazing wilderness areas that we are so lucky to have and to be able to traverse through. Thank you. Also, if you guys are new to my channel, I have done a bunch of thru hikes, including the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, the Colorado Trail, a bunch of short ones like the John Muir Trail, the West Coast Trail, the Foothills Trail, the Wonderland Trail, and a few others. So if you like thru hiking, if you like being outdoors, if you like hiking or backpacking of any kind, make sure you hit the subscribe button for lots more tips and tricks and outdoor content. Okay, so first and foremost, if you are planning to hike the PCT in 2026, you are going to want to try to get a long distance permit through the PCTA. If you don't know how this works, in October, which is now, they allow you to sign up for the lottery for permits in 2026. They'll have 2 rounds of the lottery happening. So if you're unsuccessful in the first round, you can try again in the second round. So it depends on the year when exactly they open up signups for this, but you do need to register with the PCTA during a certain time period. Usually the signups start between early and mid-October, go through probably late October, early November, and then the lottery occurs sometime between late October and mid-November. This year in 2025, registration is open from October 22nd to October 31st if you want in on the first round of the lottery. And the first round of the lottery will take place on November 13th. So the way it works is that you register with the PCTA, letting them know that you want to hike the PCT in 2026. And so sometime before the lottery, probably like the day before, they're going to send you an email letting you know what time you can get on the PCTA website to apply for your long distance permit. So if you're earlier in the day, then you're going to have a pretty good chance of getting the date that you would like to start your permit for 2026. If your time is later in the day, you're probably not going to have so much luck. The PCTA opens up permits. They give away 35 permits per day between early March and late May. In the first round of the lottery, in the second round of the lottery, they give 15 permits per day. And by the way, this is all for going northbound. So basically, they open it up to people. They give out 50 long distance permits per day between early March and late May. But some of those starting dates are more desirable than others, which are usually between, I would say, early April to late April, go faster than the other permit dates. So if you're someone who, say, ends up with an early March start date and you're not comfortable in a lot of snow, or you end up with a late May start date and you don't want to be sweating your butt off in the desert, then you might be thinking, what do I do now? Well, your first option is to wait for the second round of the lottery, which usually happens around early to mid-January. Like I said, they give out 15 more permits per day then. And you can also watch for cancellations once you have registered for a permit, because you can always change your permit date if someone cancels and you're able to snag a permit. So you would get on the PCTA permit site and you would just watch for cancellations, because you never know. People might be dropping out. People might be changing their permit dates. Like, there's a chance that you could be able to snag a long distance permit that way to get the date that you want. But if those things don't work, then your other option is to get local permits as you go for the areas that require permits along the way. And these are really it's not as complicated as you would think, and there aren't that many areas that require permits. So let's talk about that process. Don't mind me if I'm looking down a little bit, because I brought a handy dandy notebook full of notes. And by the way, I actually had to do this, get local permits for the southern section of the PCT because of a side quest that I was taking in the middle. So I have actually done this in practice. I know that it works. I know that it's not that complicated. So don't stress. The first section going northbound that you need a permit for is the Cleveland National Forest. So you actually start the trail in the Cleveland National Forest, but there are only certain miles that you actually need the permit for. So this starts at mile 13.5 and goes to mile 53.2, and then starts again at mile 112.7 and goes to mile 124.8. You can get a wilderness permit through recreation.gov for the Cleveland National Forest that covers these areas that will allow you to hike through and camp. On recreation.gov, you would look for the Cleveland National Forest PCT overnight permit. These permits open up on recreation.gov for the year on February 1st, but they are given out on a rolling basis 1 month ahead of time. So say that you want to start April 1st, you would want to get on recreation.gov on March 1st at 8 a.m. Mountain Time and try to snag one of these permits. These permits are competitive. Only 5 are given out per day, and the maximum group size is 2. So you would want to get on recreation.gov exactly 1 month ahead of time. Get ready to reserve as soon as the clock strikes 8 a.m. Mountain Time and get your permit. If you're unsuccessful, get on the next day and try again for the next day. I did not have a problem at all doing this. I was able to get my top date that I wanted, no problem. But some more popular dates do go fast, so just be aware. The fee for this permit is $6, I believe. If you were very unlucky and you were not able to get your Cleveland National Forest permit, do not fret. There is another option. So there are several established campgrounds in the first 50 miles of the PCT. These are Lake Marina at mile 20, Boulder Oaks at mile 26, Civets Flat at mile 32.6, Burnt Rancheria at 41.5, and Mount Laguna at 47.5. Some of these you can reserve on recreation.gov. Some are reservable ahead of time through the San Diego County website, and some of them are first come, first serve. So in the Cleveland National Forest, you don't need a permit to be there. You need a permit to be there overnight. But if you stay at these established campgrounds, you get around that and no problem. So if worst comes to worst, in the Cleveland National Forest, you can always stay at these established campgrounds. There is a fee for them, usually between $20 and $30. You just would want to make sure that they're going to be open at the time that you are going through. I started my hike on April 7th, and some of these campgrounds were open and some of them were still closed. But between being able to camp at some of these places and just hiking through to areas where you don't need a permit to camp, then no problem, you would have the Cleveland National Forest covered and you could be there totally legally without a PCT permit or without the overnight permit for the Cleveland National Forest. The next section of trail that you would need a permit for is the San Jacinto Wilderness and National Park near Idlewild. This is between PCT miles 167.2 to 190.5 and 193.5 to 205. You go through both the state park and the national wilderness area, but you don't need 2 separate permits because each place, if you get a permit for one of these places, it is valid for the other place. So you only need a permit through either the state park or the national forest. And both of these places have a headquarters in Idlewild that you can just go to when you get to town and go get your permit. I went to the Forest Service Ranger Station. It was super easy. It's very close to downtown, within walking distance. And I just went in, I talked to the rangers, they helped me fill out the paperwork, and I was good to go. They were super friendly, super helpful. There was no fee. It was very easy. I have also heard that if you want to do it through the state park, if you go to their headquarters, they have a self-service station. But I believe for the state park, there is a fee of $5 per night. I could be wrong about that, but I believe I read that somewhere. So if you want to save money, then maybe you want to go to the Wilderness Ranger Station instead of the state park ranger station. The next section that you need a permit for is the Sierra section from miles 703.4 to 1016.9. So this is all through the High Sierra section. So you're going through the John Muir Wilderness, the South Sierra Wilderness, the Golden Trout Wilderness, Sequoia National Park, Kings Canyon National Park, and Yosemite National Park. So you need permits for all of those places, but you can get just one permit and it is valid for all of them. So do not worry. This one you're going to get on recreation.gov. It's a non-quota permit through the Inyo National Forest. You're going to get on there and look for the Inyo National Forest wilderness permits. Side note, this is also how I got my permit going northbound on the John Muir Trail in 2023. These permits are non-quota, so that means there is not a limit to how many they give out. You're going to get an overnight permit not exiting at Mount Whitney. And you're going to start at Kennedy Meadows in the Trout Lake Wilderness, and you're going to exit at Sonora Pass. I believe during peak season, you can only get these a week or two in advance, but feel free to double check that. And you also need to make sure that you can print out your permit and sign it by 10 a.m. on the day that the permit starts. If you do not print it out, then it will not be valid. So make sure that you do that. I was able to print mine out for a low fee at the Kennedy Meadows South General Store. No problem. They were super helpful. When you input the details for your permit, it's going to ask you to put your camping locations in there. But note that you actually only need to put your camping location for your first night. Even though it will give you an option to put it in for every single night that you're out there, you don't have to do that. You only have to put it in for your very first night. The cost for this permit is $5 per person plus a $6 reservation fee. And I will warn you, if you are ever going to get your permit checked on the PCT, it's probably going to be in the Sierra section, and it's very likely going to be in Yosemite or very close to Yosemite. So make sure that you have this permit available, ready, somewhere that you can access it as you're going through this Sierra section. I actually never got my permit checked on the PCT at all, but when I was on the John Muir Trail, I got my permit checked 3 times. And it's going through the same section that you go on the PCT. So just sort of luck of the draw. Are there rangers around? Who are you running into? I know people who did get their permits checked in Yosemite or outside of Yosemite. I just didn't have to be one when I was on the PCT. And the very last permit that you're going to need is a long distance PCT permit through the PCTA. I know, I said this was if you couldn't get a long distance permit, but wait, this is different. So with this one, you are just going to get a permit from Sonora Pass to the Canada border. And if you are starting at Sonora Pass or north of Sonora Pass, it is actually a non-quota permit. So there is no limit to how many of these permits they give out. So it's not competitive to get this permit starting from Sonora Pass. As long as you're at Sonora Pass or north of Sonora Pass, it's non-competitive. They do not give out these permits for north of Sonora Pass until the second round of the lottery. So don't plan on getting it in the first round. It will not happen. And Sonora Pass, by the way, is at mile 1018. So see, this process is really not so bad. To recap, you just need a permit for the Cleveland National Forest, the San Jacinto Wilderness and State Park, the Sierra section of the PCT from mile about 700 to 1,000, and then your final long distance permit from mile 1018 at Sonora Pass to the Canada border. Really not that complicated, I promise you. When I was looking for these permits, I found some really great resources to help me out and tell me what I needed via the PCTA, the Trek, and Triple Crown Outfitters with more details. So I'll put those resources down in the show notes just in case you want to take a look. I'll also put links to these other places where you can get permits and campsites. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you have any questions about the permit process or the PCT in general, feel free to leave those down in the comments section. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to smash that like button. Thanks everybody. Happy hiking. I'll see you next time.